Hello everyone and welcome to the Playing Lean webinar. Those of you that follow us know that we hold webinars on a monthly basis, but in the coming 2 weeks we will hold 3 webinars on the topic of business modeling, something that is now more important than ever. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to our speakers today, Simen and Bruno.
Thank you, Dora. Welcome to Why Business Modeling is Important. We're excited to have you all here. Let me start out by introducing our panelists ourselves. I'm Simen. I'm a creator of Playing Lean. I'm also a co-founder of a consultancy here in Oslo called Iterate. I'm a co-founder of Otovo, a company that's set to be Europe's #1 in residential solar. And Bruno is here with me. He's also a co-creator of Playing Lean. He's someone who helps organizations innovate in a good way, and is a member of the startup community, global startup community. All right, I'm going to get my setup. Okay, here we are. So that's us. All right, so we're here to talk about business modeling and why we think it's important, right? And business modeling is one thing. Business model innovation is critical for long-term success. Bruno, do you want to say some words about that?
Yep, sure. So I was just checking, the latest numbers. It's always good to check them. And innovation in general is something that's quite worn out as a word. But when you look at the latest surveys and investigations, it kind of shows that most of the executives and organizations are not happy with their innovation efforts. And it's funny going back, kind of looking, everyone seems to naturally understand that innovation is important for the success of a business, but don't necessarily see the connection how. So for example, research done in, I think it was 2015 to 2016, it was on 270 Australian manufacturing companies, and they were specifically looking into connection between innovation and long-term success. And one interesting finding there was kind of how when dynamic environments, meaning where you have a quick change both of external environment like we're having today with COVID and everything, and internal environments kind of strengthen the effect of product innovation, meaning taking new products to market pays off more in uncertain environments. While they also found that actually in competitive environments where you have, meaning that there's more players in the same market, think red oceans, brownfields and whatnot, actually weaken the effect of product innovation, meaning taking new products to markets, but strengthen process innovation, basically improving the back end, the supply chain, the value chain, and whatnot. And then you have a bunch of other research and proofs from the market and academia and whatnot, where basically you can see that incremental innovation pays off in business and product outcomes. I think it was 4-1 or 6-1 compared to breakthrough innovation, which kind of needs to change something, or in other words, disruptive innovation. So this was all a really, really long introduction to say that there's multiple types of innovation, and gambling just on one, like traditionally R&D or technological innovations, won't be enough. So that's why this new terminology like business model innovation, taking care of actually innovating across your whole business model, really is kind of what a lot of people have been describing in the last decades, and kind of why we can state this with honesty, integrity, and pure intent, that it truly is critical for long-term business success.
Yeah, that's very true. We wanted to kind of take this subject and really make it for kind of today, right? Because business model innovation is important in general. I think that's kind of hard to dispute. And also now we're in a pandemic, and just let me say that I hope everyone is healthy and fine, doing fine, who are kind of listening in, and also that your businesses are doing okay in these circumstances. because what we see is that this pandemic, this unique situation that we're in, it challenges everything, right? Every assumption that your business model is built on is now kind of under scrutiny. It has changed or might change, and you really need to think, right? What are the strengths in your business model? What can you build on and kind of really use in this situation? And what are the weaknesses? And probably after a few weeks and months of this, you already started to see what are the weaknesses, and yeah. So all of this kind of leads into both opportunities and risks in your business model. And we wanted to take the two tools that we are going to go through in the Business Modeling Facilitator Training that we're launching in a few weeks, and use them to kind of give like a very first analysis of the situation as we see it. So we picked out in both tools 3 kind of hotspots for business model innovation in this period. And of course, as I said, everything is kind of, every assumption is challenged. So you might have something that covers the whole board, so to say. But we picked out the kind of top 3 ones. So here's the business model canvas. And we're assuming that you all know this a little bit. So that's a good place to start. And the first hotspot that we see is on the left-hand side. It's about kind of the product creation and the delivery here. So what we're seeing is that the value chain of a lot of companies are kind of under strain, because of course this all started with China being in a shutdown mode. And if you're producing anything kind of physical these days, odds are you're doing it with at least some part in China. I think that's a pretty fair assumption. And this has been challenged. So either you have a stop, and there are some parts of your product or your whole product that you can't get delivered, and you need to kind of rethink. So this might, of course, kind of come back again, and factories come back online. But still, you have to think if there are kind of lessons here. Are there opportunities that you might change the way you kind of source your products? Can you use a better mix that has kind of a lower risk with some local suppliers? Can you do some kind of 3D printing? What are kind of your opportunities in this space? If we're moving to kind of a next hotspot, as I see it, it's in redefining your customer relationships. And again, the kind of challenge is when you can't meet people anymore. So let's say you have a store and you're kind of based out of physical stores. Of course, your customer relationship is based on what happens in the store, right? Your employees, how do they meet the customers? And when you no longer can do this, let's say you switch to a model where you sell online and send products, then maybe you have to do something different. Let's say around the actual delivery on the door, right? You can choose like a bland service, or you can try to build something extra in at the kind of moment of truth where you deliver on the door, and then try to redefine your customer relationship with regards to that, right? And the final kind of hotspot that we've selected for this is the channels. So you might have to kind of reach out to your customers in a different channel. Let's say you're a musician these days, and your revenue is usually based on doing concerts, and the concerts are in most parts of the world right now not allowed. You're not allowed to do concerts, and this might be the case for, let's say, the remainder of 2020. How are we going to handle this? Well, of course, like a simple answer is you should do your concerts online, but then yeah, how do you kind of monetize this, and how do you switch delivery channel? And that's not a really easy thing to do.
I think it's definitely, when we're looking at the hotspots that we're putting forward, it's kind of, there is this deep integration basically with operating models. How do actually firms function, and it's hit hard both established businesses but also smaller boutique agencies and whatnot. And you can see it, for example, when you talk about key partnerships, and let's talk about smaller agencies, smaller consultants, less than 50, or even just a single consultant, where you suddenly have completely different set of partners, and most of them around delivery. So you might go with the Miro, Mural, Zoom, or whatever is the suite, because you don't own it. They start representing your partners. So you kind of suddenly your value chain shifts in its delivery. And that's, at least the smaller players were able to change it quickly, but larger players are really struggling with it. They're kind of pushed into it. And the typical, or what at least we're seeing both in Norway and Croatia and some other European countries, when it comes, for example, to hospitality industry, or more specifically the restaurants and dining places, kind of almost all of them being able to do some sort of delivery or some sort of a takeout that's compliant with all the expectations and the government regulations relative to COVID. So that's an example of kind of changing the key activities and key partners as well. So it's kind of, at least in Norway, there is one really, well, it's not fair to call them a startup anymore. I would call Colonial a scale up now. Yeah. But they were, for example, perfectly positioned. They were kind of, let's describe them as Amazon, but specializing for groceries in the Norway. So kind of, they were working really on their back end for some time, and on the front side. So they had front side completed. So customer relationship and the customer channel was really, or is really, really polished. So they had the benefit of advantage over the others, where front end was polished and the back end was ready to scale. Now, those guys were at the right place at the right time. That's nasty to say, but that's how it worked out for them right now. The question is, how can you help to change your business or your clients to kind of adjust these parts? And it's better. So Simen already prefaced it and said the whole business model is up in the air. Everything is up for questioning. But actually picking the hotspots is, honoring the process of smallification, picking the most painful parts or the parts that can change the fastest under given circumstances, and then going with it and iterating, moving fast and making change fast without breaking too many things, which in these days it is important. I think it's total rubbish to go like move fast and break things. I mean, today there's so much anguish and hurt and anxiety that we as innovators have additional responsibility of actually being careful in how we do things.
Yeah, that's true. I also think that Colonial is a perfect example for customer relationships, because they're kind of delivering all the groceries themselves to their own employees. And it's clear when you kind of get the delivery, there's a protocol for how they do it, where they put it, what they say, that they close the door and are polite. And it really leaves like a very good impression of the company when you put care into defining your customer relationship like this. All right, so next up, we want to kind of move to the Lean Canvas. And the course that we are kind of putting online in a couple of weeks will go into a lot of kind of depth on when to use the business model canvas and when to use the Lean Canvas. But I think this little exercise that we're doing now is actually a good illustration on the difference. So I would use the business model canvas for an existing business and kind of use it to really analyze the changes like we just did. So what is my business model right now? What's kind of under pressure, or where are the opportunities? And then kind of adjust and see where does everything fit. Whereas the Lean Canvas, I see that more as kind of the opportunistic canvas. What is the kind of opportunity that opens right now? So that's more suitable for some kind of startup. So it might be a brand new startup from scratch, or it might be a corporate startup kind of starting into a new territory that's not part of the existing business model. So we're going to look at the opportunities that arise when we are in the situation that we are in. And also here we picked out 3 hotspots. I think there are opportunities everywhere, but still, let's kind of look at the top 3 ones that we've identified. So the first one we see is kind of in the problem solution space here. So we're obviously faced with a whole range of new problems, right? We can't go to the doctor anymore, right? We might have a sick kid, but if you go to the doctor, he might catch the virus and get even more sick, or it might be disallowed, right, for a certain kind. But still, we want to have a checkup. Okay, here's a brand new problem, because 6 weeks ago we just went to the doctor. We didn't really see the problem, and if we saw the problem, that hey, it might be like a nice thing if we could do this on video, or there's some kind of online solution. Still, it wasn't an important problem. We were not really willing to kind of pay to have this problem solved. And now I'm guessing that this problem and a lot of others have kind of increased in value, right? So to speak. So I would say there are lots of new kind of problem solution areas that are kind of more worth of a lot of attention. And this kind of online solutions for doctors is certainly a big opportunity right now. We're also seeing that revenue streams is something that you really have to have a look at, right? We talked briefly about the artist who kind of has to move his business from something physical to something online, but how does he get paid, right? Can you provide the solutions that help artists to get paid in general? Well, that's a huge opportunity right now, because a lot of people are kind of still doing the same, but are struggling to find some way of getting paid for it, right? You might deliver cooking videos or lessons on Instagram, but how do you monetize that, right? That's completely unsolved, I think. And to me, the kind of next one that is also very important is customer segments. You have to rethink how you go about the customer segments, because that will all have changed. That has to have changed a lot, because the people who were kind of laggards before are kind of during just a couple of weeks likely to have become early adopters, right? You would have, for instance, then the doctors who are resistant to anything like online. That's at least my experience with doctors, who now are more or less forced to kind of use some kind of tool, right? And so they will be the early adopters. And you might create tools for elderly who want to keep in touch with their families. And some of them might not even have used a computer before. So it poses a whole new challenge, but there will be a lot of value in kind of new customer segments here.
I think here again, to touch upon the human side as well, and I think Steve Blank also wrote about it. It's kind of when going out and actually testing out new business models, we have to be considerate and kind of what's actually happening. So there's definitely problems that did not exist before, and there's definitely problems that will not exist when this is over. But what you just described, Simen, is kind of really interesting. Kind of when we look at technology diffusion curve, that those that are considered as laggards or late majority and suddenly pushed on some technologies to actually forcefully adapt and take them. And we are really seeing that in remote work. And it is very difficult, or it is quite challenging to exploit this opportunity in some meaningful way that you can actually also sustain in the longer run. So it is still a balancing act. And we do believe that kind of using the lean startup approach and modeling businesses and testing assumptions and whatnot will help actually in sustaining whatever business model you might discover in these times, because it will be based not on panic and fear and chaos, but rather on actual real signal from the customers. This horrible situation might help people to actually discover a need or recognize a problem that before they refused to acknowledge or kind of couldn't comprehend, even though it existed. So it's kind of, there is always these two phases, and kind of really successful innovators and entrepreneurs will be able to balance and exploit both of these streams.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's a very good question, what you're touching upon here. What are the long-term effects? And of course, if you're going to start a business based on what happens right now, you're going to want to put some real good thoughts into what is what is kind of the next step here, right? In half a year, in 1 year, in 2 years, are we kind of completely going back to normal, or is there like some kind of new reality that we have to face, and this is the reality that your new business will kind of thrive in? And at least from my kind of viewpoint, we're probably seeing something that's more like an acceleration of change. So I'm guessing that we're still heading in the same direction, but we're kind of going faster. So a lot of transitions to go online, to work remote, and kind of trends that we have seen in the society are probably accelerated a lot now.
And it's kind of I just had not just yesterday, but I think there's some discussion on this every day since the world situation. And I will not attempt to take my crystal ball out and tell you what the future is going to be. I'm keeping that for myself and my investment fund. But I will share kind of what I believe to be a repeatable process that you can use yourself or use with your clients. I believe it's not a massive surprise to some people, but I still think it's worth saying. So we see now a resurgence in scenario planning. Scenario planning was really popular in the late 90s, Shell and whatnot. But it's kind of, as a process, if you look at the original scenario planning and foresight process, it's really slow, it's really long, and it takes a lot of resources, which most people now perceive that they don't have. So kind of what I found that works really, really well, very, very simple process. If you know future backwards, that plus something else I'll come to in a second. If you don't know, it's one of the tools from the Knefin framework, which basically looks into, okay, let's say that you have current business model and you try to imagine, okay, what is heaven and what is hell? Kind of what is the worst that could happen in a specific time period? For this, it would be 1 year. What's the best? What's the most magical that can happen within 1 year? And then what is kind of in the middle? What do you expect will happen if you keep doing everything? And then when you have those end states, you start looking, okay, what are the steps that might take us there? You don't end up with a roadmap, but congratulations, if you follow that process, you just did very light scenario planning approach. It takes up to 2 hours, and then if it just stops at that, it was a waste of time, so don't do it at all. But if you actually start looking at the end states, and you can ask for the ones that you like, why not? Why not that? Why couldn't we achieve that? And as you collect answers to that, suddenly you have identified roadblocks that you can work on to transform existing business model to the one you like. That's very inexpensive process. It doesn't require anything. People can do it remotely as well. You can be the facilitator running that. It works with small groups, larger groups, and it can be done usually, I suggest 3 hours if you do it together with why not. So kind of 15 minutes to set up, hour and a half to do the 3 outcomes, and then what's left, 1 hour to actually do the why not exercise, and then the less to actually plan next steps. That way, at least you can say, we tried proactively to prepare for the future. And I think that is the most important today. And kind of all the coaches and consultants and internal change agents on the call and watching this, I think you have great opportunity to prepare your organizations or the organizations you work with to kind of hit the ground running when things start get, I don't want to say back to normal, but when things start opening up, when people start opening up again, that your organizations and organizations you work with aren't blinded by the light, but they're like, okay, bam, let's grab the opportunities that are arising. So kind of there is always a way, there is always a process. So kind of that's just what I wanted to share, and I hope that some of you will find some value in it.
Yeah, that's awesome. So that's a very good start on kind of why we do the business modeling facilitator training right now. And I think obviously because business modeling in general is as important as ever for our customers, for all the organizations out there. This is something they need, and they need kind of our help, our community's help with this. And then this is a kind of a product that a lot of you have requested. We have trained more than 300 game masters and Playing Lean facilitators. And this is a need that we're kind of addressing with this service. And what we want to do is kind of just put out the best kind of training that we can do, give good advice, give you all the tools that you need to kind of set up your own business modeling training as fast as you can. That's what we aim to achieve here.
It's kind of what we have experienced recurringly. What also Simen touched upon is kind of all the game masters and facilitators that we trained. What was repeatedly observed and actually explicitly asked for is kind of getting better in lean startup. Now, lean startup it's broad body of knowledge because it's dependent on several bodies of knowledge. So kind of we said, okay, let's start with the most critical ones. So, okay, we have Playing Lean, but when we look at the core of lean startup, it stands on 3 pillars, and that is business modeling, customer development, and agile engineering. It doesn't make sense if we are eating our own dog food to start with a massive big bang and kind of, hey, here is 1100 courses. That's not also what we're interested in, because we are practitioners ourselves. So kind of what we have the benefit of is we don't have vested interest in any tool in the market. So the only thing we care about is the best tools in the market to get the results as fast as possible.
Yeah, exactly. That's so important, right? There's we can give free, open, neutral advice to our facilitators.
Well, right. Some will hate us or like us less, but hey,
that's all right. We've had a lot of questions going into this, so we thought there's no way we can go through them all. So we'll try to address a few more in each of the 3 webinars that we are setting up in these 2 weeks. But we're going to give it a good start here and now. And I'm going to read the first question, and you're going to answer it, Bruno.
Oh, thank you so much. And before you move on, just a reminder, so everybody now live in the webinar, you have Q&A box on the bottom, so you can also pop in the question. We will save it if we don't get to it right now, but we will answer it either in the follow-up webinar or online if no other way is possible.
Exactly.
So surprise me, Simen. What do you have for me?
So first question about the training is what is it and how valuable is it to me?
I think that we covered what is it, and we will talk about it a bit more. How valuable, you said how valuable is?
How valuable is it to me?
Okay. Well, how valuable is it to you, the person asking, or whoever, depends largely on your business model and your ability to sell. But let's assume very modest fee of 199 euros per person. With this, you can do 2 to 3 hour workshop with 20 people. That would be 4,000 euros for 2 to 3 hours of work. So it's kind of, that's the value of a single workshop. And depending, I doubt that anyone here doesn't have other offering as well. So kind of combining with that, that's how you can calculate your own value or value potential for such workshops.
Yeah, and that's good. The next question is, can I do this online or remote? And then I can answer this, and the answer is emphatically yes. So we're most certainly building something now that you can take and deliver online over a video with your clients kind of directly. So I think that's a big strength in the workshop that we're kind of setting up. The next question is, will all the SOP be provided for us to run the workshop? And then we assume that SOP is the standard operating procedure.
Yeah. We will not write any SOPs. I think that would be a massive overkill for your creativity and creativity of people using it. But all materials and all instructions will be provided. Yes, that means editable templates, specific instructions how to do retro, etc. Specific instructions on connecting it to your additional offering. So all of that is included. So we're keeping the same mindset and the same, let's say, spirit as in Playing Lean, from community for community. We are practitioners, and we just share what other practitioners like us are using to get shit done. That's it.
yeah, so you take the course, you can download all the material, and there are no like restrictive licenses or anything. You take it, you change it, you update it, and you use it as your own. That's what we do.
Stupid guys.
Yes. And the next question is kind of related. So, is there any marketing collateral included? So that's yes and no. So in our experience, it doesn't make sense for us to kind of make your posters and that everyone is supposed to run around kind of with exact same marketing collateral. But we're making it very easy. We're giving you access. Facilitators in this program will get access to all our illustrations and can use them freely as well. So you can use our awesome illustrations to build and enhance your own marketing collateral. I think that's better actually. Yeah. Then the next question is it based upon the business model canvas? Well, yes, we've gone through that a little bit now. The two tools that we have chosen, the two tools that we have the best experience with, are the business model canvas and the lean canvas. And there are also questions about kind of what kind of situations would you use either one, and how do you explain the difference between them in like a client setting, right? And I think, yeah, Bruno, you want to go?
Yeah, what I think is important, and we try to, so there's always a challenge between balancing the theory and practice. And kind of my belief is always that the coach, the consultant, the instructor, the teacher should know more, but that's not the reason for that person to share everything. So it's kind of, don't commit cognitive murder. Don't just dump everything on the student. Business modeling is not new. And these two tools, why they're so popular after so many years, is because they allow us to visually question the business model. But business model and the theory behind it isn't that new. It predates both tools. And that is kind of what we shortly tried to cover as well, because you as the person making the change, you as the person actually teaching others how to change and shape business models, I believe there is for you a reason to know a little bit more. That doesn't mean that you will force it upon your students, but you will be able then to adapt to the questions better. So there's the question of what is business modeling and small theoretical underpinnings of that. And then there is the question, what tools are the best, when to use them, and how to use them. So this is kind of at least the two questions that we focused on. The third one is delivery. And delivery has implications on the quality and how much students actually take in. But yeah, I don't want to talk. I could talk for hours on that. So
let's not go there. And also, how would you link? How do we link lean startup with business modeling in our training? So me, yeah, sorry.
So the silent I see a little bit. So I can start, and then you can cut me off if I again go too much into digression. Though I touched upon it a little bit. This question is broad, and if you think about smallification, which is one of the important concepts in lean startup that are often not verbalized or explicitly spoken about, the same applies here. Integration with lean startup and the whole methodology, how you want to do it, I believe the maximum flexibility is if the teacher, the instructor, the consultant, the coach, I should just use one word instead, that it's your freedom and responsibility to weave it together how you see fit, most likely. We do offer, I think, at least 6 different ways, or 6 or 9 different ways how you can connect it to other ways, bodies of knowledge, how you can take it further. And the easiest one is obviously when you have a business model, the first thing it's a bunch of assumptions. What do you do with assumptions? Well, you should probably work on them further because they're either too high level and you can't do anything with them, or if you can do something with them, you probably want to prioritize them somehow using usually 2x2 matrix. And then you want to start running experiments on them. And then you're already in the next workshop, or you're in a client engagement, or you're actually coaching the team. So suddenly you're moving on. So again, going back to our first design principle, we want to keep it flexible. We want to keep it up to your creativity to connect these building blocks. That's why we try to be careful to not be too prescriptive in how will you connect it with overall lean startup body of knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, you're always in a bigger context, right? So where do you kind of want to go next? And it's usually quite easy to kind of build that bridge, and we're giving you quite a few ideas on kind of how to proceed from the business modeling to kind of your next session and connecting it with your overall engagement with the customer, right? Right, and that's kind of the next question is what value can my participants expect to get from me once I have completed the Business Modeling Facilitator Training? And I think that's a very good question. And the kind of short answer is that the participant should be able to model their own idea, right? I mean, there's a distinction here whether you're supposed to learn business modeling in general or to kind of work with your own idea, and that's what you get out of the workshop. And we've gone for this. I think this is the most sensible approach, to work with something concrete, to make the participants able to kind of understand the tool.
Yeah, the retention is greatly diminished if you have just theory. So this is all focused on getting practical outcome. And in most cases, you will be working with others who are probably not coming to train them in business modeling, but actually to move their ideas further. So let's take here corporate example. Let's say that you have a corporate workshop with 20 to 30 participants, and then the process or the goal, the outcome, desired outcome is furthering their ideas. They struggle usually describing their ideas. So suddenly you have tools to help them describe the idea. It's Ash. I think it's Ash that used that in his presentation, which is basically the business model is the product. It's not the small solution and UVP box. It's the business model is the product. The business model is the idea. So the same is with your participants. That's the value to them. Value to them is you will model, you will describe your idea, you will identify weaknesses in it, and you will have something practical and tangible to work with. In the process of doing that, of course, you will learn how to use the hammer to model it. So that's much more valuable when you position it like that than when you position it, I'm going to teach you the tool. Yeah. Like, okay, there are countless tools. Who cares about the tools except, how do you call someone who is addicted to tool?
I don't know.
We have to find a word for that. I'm sure there's something.
Yeah, it has to be. Yeah, I also think that's in the spirit of playing lean, the board game, right? What do your participants come to learn about lean startup, not about the board game? And in the same spirit, they come to learn about their business model or their idea, and not the tool itself. All right. I think that's what we have time to cover in terms of questions right now. We have a long list to pick from also next time, which will be on Tuesday. Next Tuesday, that's the 28th of April. And we'll publish the time and everything so that there will be no confusion regarding time zones. So that's good. And then we'll go more into details about going from theory to practice with business modeling. And I think that will answer a few more of the questions that have been addressed here as well, in some more details. And we love comments and questions. So that's awesome. We're going to publish this webinar as part of a blog page. So feel free to add your comments and questions in the section below the blog. I think that will be awesome for us. All right. That's it for now. Thank you for listening in. This has been a good session, and we're looking forward to seeing you already next week.
Thank you.
Thanks.